You're watching Drakewing Gaming. Enjoy the video.
Hey guys and gals, Never here from Drakewing Gaming, 70 Mounts Twitter the Gaming Dragon. Today I'm coming back at you with the Let's Play episode of Green Eyres End. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump right back into it, shall we? Alarm saying you were up, and let's go! Alright. I promise I'll not lie about any of my answers. The goat looks down to the several objects lined up, separated into two groups. I have separated my items into two groups, one for the ones relating to my life in the living world, and one for the dead. For the sake of honesty, I admit I have done this process several times before, with these same items too. I'll attempt to give different and better worded information. Dear guest, do you have any questions about the process? None. Let's begin with the center of attention. You. What can you tell us about yourself? My name's Paz, named by myself after the Spanish word for peace. During life, I had but a nickname, Goat Boy. I was born and raised in Green Eyres End, at the old settlers' village, from the year 1938 to 1958. My current appearance is similar to what I had back then, but I've let it age a bit more since my death. I prefer the more mature look. My hybrid species situation is the same since birth, being what the villagers referred to as an animal companion. From the little I remember, there were tales of animal hybrids roaming the woods. The ones who propagated these stories were usually the kids and teens who made a dare of a game who would wander even further into the forest. Most of the time, it was just an excuse for the rebellious to upset their parents. Considering our population of wolves and bears, the most logical conclusion for people gone missing was due to wild animal attacks. Very few actually thought it was something else, especially regarding the supernatural. Animal companions are individuals born with human-animal forms, and possesses special abilities dictated by their associated roles. My role was the gardener, and my brother the constructor. I'll refrain from more details on this subject until we talk about the items. Hybrids with supernatural powers. Is the mayor of them? Due to our powers, me and my brother were raised with the purpose of supporting the village, providing supernatural miracles that allowed them to survive despite the extreme isolation. Due to unknown reasons, only two animal companions could be alive at a time, and the time of birth of the next was dictated by the stone gem hourglass in our room. The contents solidified roughly every 20 years, so the villagers made sure the current companions died by then. I tried to escape but got caught. All I could do was buy time for my brother to escape, and I have not seen nor heard of him in the afterlife since. Two at the village. Does that mean there could be more elsewhere? After my death, I accepted joining this branch. I went to school, got a full education course all the way to university. I tried botany, architecture, and mathematics before finally setting on psychology. Yeah, death is fucking complicated in this game. I like it. Yep, I died. Okay, gonna go to college. Gonna go to death college. Oh, yeah. Good call. I intend to provide all souls with the same opportunities, including you, dear guest. Indeed, you were quite patient with me, Lord Manager. Do either of you have any questions? Yes. Why did you decide to work on our branch? Transference to other branches is possible, and you have received plenty of requests to do so. Well, sentimental attachment is part of it, but also, I think I'm more comfortable dealing with people from this area. Having been raised in the same town, I feel like individuals from here are easier to approach. No more questions? Then let's move on to the objects. Which side do you want to start with? The right, the living world ones. Very well, begin. The goat looks down at a blue pendant. He closes his eyes and thinks for about a minute. Finally, he smiles, speaking comfortably. The first item to my right is a pendant given to me by my mother. It's tradition in the village to give your newly born child a handmade amulet imbued with best wishes. Her wishes were that I grew healthy and strong, never to fall for disease nor petty injuries. The pendant itself is made of blue quartz, harvested from one of the village's caves. According to my mother, the reason was simply because the color blue was pleasing to look at. Do you like the amulet? Even if it was designed so nonchalantly? Very much. The fact it was created by such a simple thought doesn't detract from its appeal at all. Any attempts to express your appreciation towards another is valuable. Can you tell me a little about your mother? Sure, my mother was a very pleasant woman. She was hard-working, cheerful, and simple. Not very clever nor creative, but that didn't get in the way of her will to demonstrate appreciation for others. During her late 40s, she contracted a disease. At the time, we thought it was incurable, and it slowly took her life, along with a few to follow. In the afterlife, I've discovered a cure existed for dozens of years and was cheaply available in most pharmacies. Do you resent your culture's refusal of outside help? Yes, even if it's driven primarily due to fear and ignorance rather than malice. I believe the next item also relates to your village. Would you like to move on to that? I would. One moment, please. The goat looks at a leaf circlet, pondering at it for another minute. This circlet was made and gifted to me by the village elders after my birth. Any high-ranking individual, animal companions included, are given one of these. It's shaped like a leaf to indicate my role as the gardener. I don't have much emotional attachment to this one. It's mostly a formality, and at best reminds me of my duties to the village. As the gardener, my role was to study and reveal my knowledge about plants. I possess supernatural abilities that help inspect them, learning how healthy they are, if they need more nutrients or water, if there's damage, etc. How does it feel when you do that? I rudely interrupted the goat, my curiosity getting the better of me. I recall the sensation it felt from the flowers in front of the house. It's hard to tell. I simply know when I look at them. Does it feel like an emotion? Like you're feeling what they're feeling? Yes, I suppose it does sometimes. It's much more prominent on the ones that my magic has interacted with before. By magic, I mean my ability to enhance and force plants to grow and bloom. I often use this power to make sure the seeds successfully sprout. I also have another ability, which I'll explain along with the next item. Please return to explaining your association with the village. Yes, sir. My task was essentially to grow plants efficiently to provide the village with better food and medicine. I performed my job fairly well and received plenty of praises from the villagers. However, very few of them ever approached me as a friend. Most saw me as a messiah sent to save them, as a slave who's just doing what they should, or as a threat to their job. The only friend I had was the other animal companion who, despite non-blood related, I've come to call my brother. I took pride in what I could accomplish, but serving the villagers was hardly enjoyable. I always wanted to see what the outsiders would think of me, of us, yet I was too scared to take that risk. The idea of the outside world was daunting, wild, beyond my ability to comprehend. I assume this feeling is why most villagers never leave. The safety of the wooden walls is comforting. It wasn't until I was at death's door that I realized I should have left long ago. The goat stops to take a breath, his composure cracked during that last phrase, emotions piercing through the collected demeanor. Any questions so far? Neither me nor Shezmu say a word. The goat readjusts in their seat, readying to talk about the next item, a pot with bright golden plants. This plant is called the Midnight Sunray. It's a species I have created by modifying the DNA of the golden leaves. This is the other power I alluded to before, the ability to transform plants and breed new species. Midnight sunrays are made with the express purpose of providing easily accessible light sources. Each leaf and branch has several tiny strands running along its surface. Each one lights up, generating light and spreading spores. Its light output per branch is similar to 1/3 of a candle. We would usually pack a dozen together and shape lamps with them. As a result of sharing DNA with the golden leaves, they can also be used to patch wounds and brew tea with a good amount of vitamins. Was it difficult to create a new species? Extremely so. It took years of research and lots of trial and error. That is also why I feel tremendous pride looking at it. It's like a symbol of my perseverance, and it's been so useful to myself and others. When did you want it to cast light? While I was growing up, there was a drought of resources used to create torches. The village was effectively impossible to navigate during the dark, and it negatively affected the lives of many, especially during the longer winter nights. I could use my powers to make the golden leaves emit a bit of light, but with which my mother used to read me stories at night. After she died, I continued the hobby of reading before bed, accompanied by my brother. It was difficult to do so with their current output, and it was tiring on my eyesight and stamina. Breeding a new plant species was my best option. The villagers didn't object to the idea. I see. Take as long as you want before talking about the next item. The last object on that side looks like crudely made handcuffs. There are lots of usage marks, rust, and cracks running along its surface. I'm ready. The goat says this with a determined look on his face. Despite the resolve, there's a hint of fear in his tone. As I've said before, animal companions were meant to die before their 20th anniversary. The villagers did the deed by sacrificing us at an altar. The ritual involved the sacrifice being tied to a ceremonial table, forced to drink poison and wait for a slow death while the priest danced and sang to the gods. These handcuffs were used to tie me down as I've drank several cups worth of deadly toxins. However, I survived. The goat closes his eyes. His voice isn't as sure as before, slowly diminishing in confidence with every word. The poison burned through my insides, blocked the path to my lungs, and made my body numb, but all these effects faded in seconds. Confused, the villagers tried a more direct approach, using a ceremonial dagger to stab me. They plunged it on my chest and stomach several times. I still survived. However, my brother, who was made to watch the ceremony, didn't take that very well. He lashed at the villagers trying to rescue me, only to get violently beat up by the guards. Truth be told, I was emotionally done with the village by that point, too. The priest considered decapitation, but some villagers wondered if it might have been a sign to let me live. I was taken back to my house and left to recover. Did you ever find out how you survived? After studying the effects of long-time consumption of golden leaves and midnight sunrise, we found that they massively boost your innate resistance to poison and improves your blood quality and production. One of the ways my body acquires knowledge of plants is by eating them. Combined with my powers to enhance their growth and effect, it likely prevented my death. Even with a stab wound to the chest? The ceremonial dagger was quite poor at dealing actual damage. It didn't go too deep and mostly relied on the individual bleeding out. The priests, likely due to the elaborate ceremonial robes I was wearing, missing the vital organs despite being very close. I can't be sure of Lycaon's involvement. I can collaborate that Paz's resistance and regeneration were good enough to survive such an ordeal. I see. Continue, please. I used that time to plan our escape instead, but if they didn't try to kill me again, they'd surely at least try to kill my brother. I couldn't allow that. I planned to use the tunnels below the village to escape. For the most part, the plan worked, but I misjudged the reach of the traps. One pierced my leg, slowing me down enough that I couldn't make it out in time. I gave Borboy the coordinates to follow while I stayed behind, growing vines to buy them enough time to escape. Meanwhile, I hid in a crevasse but was found out and killed. The goat took a deep breath, sinking back on their chair, returning to a relaxed state. Shall I move on to the afterlife items? Neither of us object. Well then, the first batch of items are the medals I've earned throughout several competitions. Most of them are participation awards, but I have fond memories of them regardless. Back when I was still getting accustomed to the afterlife, I spent a little time playing chess and darts. That's how I met most of my friends I made on this branch. Sometime later, I decided to get an education. These are the results. The goat looks further to his left, pointing to a bunch of detailed papers. One in particular stands out, shining with bright gold patterns. This is one of the biggest accomplishments of my life. Curriculum's worth of 23 years of school, the brightest one being for a well-regarded university in the Canadian branch of the Duat. It was a bureaucratic nightmare to get all the permissions. It was worth it, though. Thank you, Lord Shezmu. I suppose that was also a reason I wanted to work here with you. The lion's ears twitched and his eyes darted around a bit. He was quick to recompose himself. The goat smiled and continued to talk. I actually failed several classes and had to do catch-up work, but I eventually passed the final test, earning this curriculum. I have many different feelings attached to them. Joy, frustration, anger, hope, sadness, and pride. Does it feel like you figured out who you are after all this? It's tough to say. After all these decades of being alive, I've decided that who I am at any given point is different. Right now, this pause is deeply related to the one that first entered the afterlife, but hardly the same. I am not sure if I could even fully describe what that 20-year-old version of me truly was. There are so many details I forgot, or memories that have been recontextualized. I'm gonna pause it right there, y'all. Thank y'all so much for watching. I love you all, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye-bye!